Hello, and welcome to our 2019 Open Enrollment Information Presentation. I'm Claudine Cloutier, Benefits Program Manager for the Human Resources Department, and I'm going to walk you through what open enrollment is, why it's important, and things that you want to think about during the open enrollment period. So, why should you care about open enrollment? Well, if you're like most people, you probably don't think much about your benefits throughout the year, and that's great. It means everything's working well for you. But open enrollment can be a time where you take a good look at what you have currently and make sure that it's meeting your needs. Remember that most benefits that you are participating in, you're doing that for financial planning reasons. You're trying to minimize your cost outlays. If you have a bad medical year, you might purchase life insurance or other kinds of income replacement insurance. So it's all about financial planning. So once a year, take a half hour, look at things, make sure that they're working for you, and check that off the list for another year. Open enrollment is also really important to people because it's the one time of year when you can make any change you want to your pre-tax benefits, and those are your medical, dental, and flexible spending accounts. You don't have to have a qualifying event like a change in your status, a marriage, or a birth, things that you'd be able to do in the middle of the year. Open enrollment is the time for you to do anything you want. And it's also the time of year when you'd enroll in an FSA for the new plan year. Those contracts don't roll from year to year, so you have to enroll in one annually if you want to participate annually. Open enrollment system is available online only from November 1st through November 15th, so it's really important that you review your choices, make your changes if you need to during that time. Once open enrollment closes, you'll have to wait for a mid-year qualifying event to change anything about those pre-tax benefits. It's also a great time to review your other elections, like your current life insurance. Do you have enough? Do you have too much? Long-term disability coverage. Do you have income replacement in case you have a long-term illness? Retirement contributions that you might be making. It's just a great reminder to look at all those things holistically. And once you're sure that your things are the way you want them to be, you set them on autopilot for another year. And so again, a reminder that FSA contracts do not roll from year to year. You must enroll annually if you want to continue to have an FSA in the new year. Even if you have a rollover balance from your medical FSA this year, that would roll into the new year. But if you don't enroll in a new contract, you won't be able to continue to contribute in an FSA for the new year. We're going to start by looking at the medical plan options for 2020. There's no change to the current plan, so if you're happy with what you have now, there won't be any changes for next year. But if you do want to take a look at the differences between them, this is just a high-level summary slide. We'll start on the left with the Albemarle Select plan. That's our traditional health insurance plan that you're probably most familiar with. It's a PPO plan, which means that you don't need a referral to go to any doctor in the network. It features individual and family deductibles for services like tests, emergency room, hospitalization, surgeries, etc. You pay copays for things like pharmacy and for doctor's visits, either your PCP, your family doctor, or a specialist. You'll pay a copay for those services. Once you meet the deductible, the plan kicks in at 80% of the allowable charges while you pay 20% up until the out-of-pocket max for the plan year. The out-of-pocket max you can think of as your safety net. That limits how much money you'll be responsible for if you have a bad medical year. This plan, as well as the Albemarle Choice plan, the one we're going to talk about in a second, both feature 100% coverage for preventative services. So preventative services are things like annual physicals, screening exams like mammography, colonoscopies, pap smears, and certain vaccinations during the year, depending on your age. The Albemarle Choice plan is a high deductible health plan, and that means that the deductibles are higher than the traditional health insurance model. And it comes with a health savings account or an HSA, and we'll talk more about what that means in a minute. The way it works on a high deductible plan is you don't really have copays at first. Everything that you do or buy on the plan, so whether that's you going to a doctor for a non-preventative service, or if you purchase a prescription, all of those things, you'll pay the allowable charge for those services until you meet your deductible. At the point you meet your deductible, then the plan kicks in at 100% with one exception, and that's pharmacy. If you have any pharmacy services or purchases after you meet your deductible, then you're going to go into copay status for prescriptions only up until you hit the out-of-pocket max. So that's a lot to take in, and I'll have another slide in a few minutes that kind of breaks this down, so we'll go over this one more time. With the high deductible plan, we give you a health savings account, and a health savings account is a tax-advantaged account that you can use for your high deductible healthcare expenses. We're going to give you $92 a month. We're going to monthly HSA contributions as of January. And you can also put money into your HSA, and I would certainly encourage you to do that. That's the best way to bulk up the balance in the HSA so you're ready for whatever comes your way medically, and it's also a great way to save for retirement in the future. We'll talk more about HSAs as we go on. So there's a comparison. Again, no change from the current plan options that we offer. That's what things will look like for next year. So because you're probably pretty familiar with the way a traditional health insurance plan works, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the high deductible health plan with the HSA so that you understand the components individually and how they work together. So a high deductible health plan is, as the name would suggest, a plan where you have a higher deductible to be met, and you pay lower premiums. Because of that, you have higher out-of-pocket expenses potentially in the year, so you're going to pay lower monthly premium costs. So unlike a traditional health insurance plan model where you have co-pays, you are actually going to pay the allowable charges on this plan for any services. So that's tests, that's pharmacy, that's doctor's visits, anything except preventative care that's covered at 100%, you're going to actually pay the allowable charge for that service or good. So as an example, it might cost you $25 copay on the traditional health insurance plan to see your PCP, but on the high deductible plan, that cost may be $75 or $100 to see your PCP. So all of your covered expenses are paid by you out of pocket until the deductible is met. But it's not a free-for-all. You still get the benefit of having an insurance company that's negotiated the rates for any kind of good or service that you could have on the health insurance plan. So in other words, they're not going to charge you $500 for that doctor's visit. They're going to charge you $75 potentially, because that's the allowable charge that was negotiated by the insurance company. So again, preventative care is covered at 100% so that you don't have to worry about paying for that out of pocket. And really savvy consumers save money on a high deductible health plan. If you're willing to look around to research what an MRI costs at, say, for example, here in town, UVA or Martha Jefferson, or maybe you look at costs in Richmond or Lynchburg or Culpeper, you may save yourself some money if you do that. So with the high deductible health plan, you get what is called an HSA or a health savings account. A health savings account is a tax-advantaged plan that helps you pay for your expenses that are on your high deductible health plan and other eligible expenses like vision or dental. It's tax-advantaged in that you put money in on a pre-tax basis. We're going to put $92 a month in it if you're a full-time employee, and you will never pay taxes on the contributions, the interest, or the earnings as long as you use them for eligible expenses. So again, employer and employee contributions are allowed, and we certainly encourage you to make your own contributions into your HSA along with our contributions, and that helps you be ready for any out-of-pocket expenses that you have on this healthcare plan. The difference, too, is that these funds belong to you. Once we put money into your HSA, that money's yours. We can't pull that back. That is your money to spend or your money to take with you. It's completely portable, whether you leave our employment and go elsewhere or whether you decide you don't want to be on this plan anymore. Those funds are still yours to use for eligible expenses. And there's unlimited carryover. There's no use it or lose it kind of restriction as there are with flexible spending accounts or FSAs. You can grow this account as much as you want to. The IRS does limit how much can go in contributions in a year, but it doesn't limit how much the HSA account can actually have in it. And again, remember, it's triple tax advantaged. It's a great way to save for your eligible healthcare expenses, and it's also a great way to save for future healthcare expenses and retiree healthcare expenses. All right, this is a simple illustration of how a high deductible plan and a health savings account work together. So in the graphic, we see that this person, we'll say it's you, are starting off at the beginning of the plan year, and we are putting money into your HSA. As a reminder, full-time employees on the Choice Plan get $92 a month starting in January to put into the HSA, and you can certainly put money into your HSA as well. And so as you're going through the plan year, you have expenses. You maybe have a prescription, you maybe have a few doctor's visits. So you're going to pay for those, the allowable charges for those services up until you meet your deductible, unless you have preventative care services. And again, those are covered at 100%. So let's say you go through the plan year and you meet your deductible. So at that point, if you have pharmacy purchases only, those would be on a copay basis up until you hit the out-of-pocket maximum. Or if you hit your deductible and you have no pharmacy costs, then you've in effect hit your out-of-pocket max for the year. You won't have any more expenses on the health plan for the rest of the plan year. So any money you have left in your HSA that you haven't spent during the plan year, that just stays in the account and it keeps growing, and you can keep adding to it as long as you're within the annual IRS contribution max for the year. And so when the plan year ends, everything restarts all over again and you go back to the beginning. All right, so this is just a very simple illustration to show how you can most effectively beef up your health savings account balance and be prepared for any healthcare expenses that come your way. So the pile of coins on the left represents the higher premium that you pay, the monthly premium that you pay for health insurance on a traditional health insurance plan model. And then in the middle is the smaller pile of coins, which represents the smaller monthly premium that comes with the high deductible healthcare plan. The smart consumer is going to take the difference between what they would have paid to be on that richer traditional health insurance plan and what they're paying to be on the high deductible healthcare plan, and actually pay yourself with that money. Take the savings from that lower premium and put it in your HSA account. If you were going to spend that money on traditional healthcare insurance plan premiums anyway, take the money and pay yourself with it. And then that way you'll have the money in your HSA when the time comes. It's good to acknowledge that one size does not fit all when it comes to healthcare plans. There's no right or wrong. It's really about how you use healthcare. So for the traditional plan, someone who might prefer to be on that kind of model prefers to pay higher known costs. So that's the monthly premium, that's known. You know every single month you have to pay a certain amount of money to be on the plan. And you pay a higher cost to have lower unknown costs. And unknown costs are when you go and seek treatment and services. So many people prefer the traditional health insurance model. They prefer to pay those copays, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's you, then the traditional plan is probably a great fit for you. People that might be attracted to the high deductible plan with the HSA, they prefer to pay lower known costs. They don't want to pay that much more money for monthly premiums. They prefer to keep their premiums low, with the understanding that when they do seek treatment or when they need to buy prescription medications, that they're going to pay higher out-of-pocket costs at that time than they would have on the traditional plan. Someone who wants to be on a high deductible plan is open to managing their healthcare expenses, doing the research to see where the best price is for a good or a service, because it really is a consumer-driven plan. You drive where you're spending your healthcare dollars. And also, someone who's really successful at using this plan is willing to invest their premium savings, as we said in the previous slide. They're willing to take the money that they would have spent on the higher insurance premium and put that in their HSA piggy bank in case they need to use it for healthcare expenses and potentially save it for future healthcare expenses up and through retirement. It's also good to acknowledge that there are some potential disadvantages to having a high deductible health plan with an HSA. So we're going to talk about what those are. One, it can be really hard to accurately budget for your expenses. You can look back and see what your plan year expenses were in the previous plan year or the current plan year, but one never knows. So it is difficult to budget for any particular scenario, which again is another reason to get your HSA balances as high as possible so you're ready, whatever comes your way. Information about the cost and quality of medical care can still be very difficult to find. It's getting more transparent, but we're really not there yet. There are tools out there. You can go to the anthem.com site to see provider costs or what surgical procedures might cost, but that's just a range. It doesn't tell you for sure what things are going to cost because nothing really can. And websites like goodrx.com are a great way to compare pharmacy costs for any given drug in your area. So you do have to seek out information, but it can be difficult to find, admittedly. Some people may find it challenging to build their HSA because of higher plan use. You may have started out the year thinking, well, I'm going to have a great medical year and I'm not going to spend any money, and then I can save and beef up my HSA, and then something comes along. So if you have a bad year, you can have a one step forward, two steps back kind of situation with your HSA. And it's good to acknowledge that that can happen and to be prepared for it. It's not that it's a bad thing necessarily, but it can make things a little harder to help you grow your HSA balances. This is a biggie. Some people may not seek medical care or take prescription drugs that your doctor recommended so that you can save money and not spend your HSA money. If you think that you're that kind of person, please don't take this plan. We want you to take care of yourself. That's what these healthcare dollars are for. It's to help you stay well, to get well. And if you feel that you're the kind of person that, if you know yourself and know that if you have this money and you won't be willing to spend it when you should spend it, then this is probably not going to be a good plan for you, because the most important thing is for you to take care of your health. So the So now that you know a little bit more about each of the plans that we offer, how do you really assess them for you and what's best for you? Well, one thing you want to do is, of course, compare your monthly premiums. Never forget to add your monthly premiums into your total healthcare spending, because you are spending that money and it is for healthcare. So you want to take that into consideration. You want to view the side-by-side highlights. We'll show you what that looks like in a minute, to see how the plans cover you differently, so that you understand how they work. And you also want to think about how you and your covered family members use your health care coverage. Everybody's going to be different, so you want to look at how you use it. And then the final piece is the out-of-pocket maximum. That's your exposure during a plan year. So you're responsible for a certain level of medical costs during the year, and then once you hit your out-of-pocket max, the plan kicks in at 100%, and you're no longer responsible for any further costs. So again, that's your safety net. You want to compare the differences between the two when you're assessing. All right, so here is a comparison slide of the different premium costs between the traditional health insurance plan, the select plan, and the high deductible plan, the choice plan. So for example, employee only on the select plan, full-time employee pays $86 a month for health insurance on the select plan. And if they took the choice plan, they'd pay $15 a month. And so you can see the differences between those costs in those two columns. In the middle is the premium difference between them. So again, on the choice plan, you'd pay $15 a month as an individual. If you wanted to be on the select plan, you're actually paying $71 more to be on the traditional health insurance plan. So that middle column is the difference in the premiums between the PPO plan and the high deductible plan. So you can see that's considerable difference, especially at the family level. Now, when we factor in the $92 a month HSA contribution that comes with the Albemarle Choice Plan, this is the total impact of your premium costs and HSA contributions where eligible. And so the employee who's covering just themselves is actually technically getting $163 savings difference between being on the choice plan and being on the select plan. And the family, it's $243 a month. They're paying more money to be on the select plan, and they are not getting an HSA contribution. So this is the sheer premium HSA contribution impact between the plans. That's without using services at all. All right, now that we know the difference between the monthly premium structures for the plans, now let's look at how the benefits pay under each of the plans. So for the select plan, the individual deductible is $500, and it's a family deductible of $1,000. And so the deductible applies for things like tests, MRIs, CAT scans, hospital visits, surgeries, etc. So basically anything that is not preventative care or copay based, like doctor's visits and pharmacy, applies to the deductible. So let's say you have a fairly high use medical year and you have a bunch of tests and you need to go in the hospital. So you'll meet your $500 deductible. The plan will pick up at 80%. You'll pay 20% of the allowable charge up until the out-of-pocket maximum for the year. So on the select plan, the out-of-pocket maximum is $3,500 individual, or a maximum of $7,000 family. So let's talk about how this works. If you have just one person on the plan, then this is pretty straightforward. Your deductible is $500. You meet that. The plan kicks in at 80/20, and then you'll pay up to $3,500. That includes the deductible in the year. That's your safety net for the year, and then you're done. Any out-of-pocket expenses after that point, you don't pay anything after $3,500. So if you have more than a few people on the plan, here's how the family works. So let's go back to the deductible. Let's say you have 3 people on your insurance plan and one person hits the deductible, and you still have 2 other people still on the plan. So the rest of the expenses that those 2 people have together to another $500 would they be cobbled together, and then that would hit the family max for the year, or the family deductible for the year. So whether that's one extra person or two people or three people, etc., the remaining expenses are cobbled together to go to the deductible for the family. And the same is true of the out-of-pocket maximum. So let's say you have somebody in the family that's had a bad year, they've hit the $3,500 plan max. That person's done. Any expenses they have after that fact, they don't have to pay anything. The rest of you on the plan, any expenses you pay out of pocket would be cobbled together and would apply against the family deductible. And then once you meet the family deductible, that's it for the year. So worst case scenario on the select plan at the individual level is $3,500 out of pocket besides your premiums. And then at the family level, which is 2 or more people, is $7,000. So that's your worst case scenario in a plan year on the select plan. Now on the choice plan, remember that you're paying out of pocket for pretty much everything except preventative care to hit the deductible. So that's $3,000 individual, $6,000 family. And then once you hit the deductible, the plan pays at 100% with the exception of pharmacy. Remember that on the choice plan only, once you get to the deductible and hit it, you'll go into copays until you spend either $1,000 or $2,000 more on copays. And so that's either $4,000 out-of-pocket max on the choice plan or $8,000 family. And you have to be pretty sick to hit $1,000 or $2,000 worth of copays on pharmacy. So odds are you're going to have some combination of either not hitting the deductible at all, or once you hit it, not hitting out-of-pocket max. But if you do hit the out-of-pocket max for the year, your safety net on the choice plan is $4,000 individual or $8,000 family. So looking at the bottom, just a reminder, doctor's visits are copay based, pharmacy is copay based on the select plan, but on the choice plan, you pay for those services 100% of the allowable charges until your deductible is met. All right, so now that you have all of that under your belt, we're going to look at some potential situations that it could occur so that you can see how this plays out in real life with people as they use the health plan during the year. So in this example, this is someone who is on the younger side, who is very healthy and has only used preventative services during the year. So she hasn't really had to pay anything out of pocket, just paying monthly premiums. So when we compare Soraya here, she would either pay $1,032 a year annual medical premiums, or she'd pay $180 on the choice plan. She had no out-of-pocket medical costs. She got an $1,104 annual HSA contribution. That's $92 per month times 12 months is $1,104. Again, the only out-of-pocket cost she had was her premiums that she paid monthly. So she saved $1,956 by being on the choice plan because she didn't have any out-of-pocket costs. She got an HSA contribution from us, and she paid lower monthly premiums. So the interesting thing in this example, this is a good example of how someone who has a good medical year can really beef up their HSA account, because she's almost at full. She's got another she needs to get to $3,000 to meet her deductible if she has a bad year, but she saved $1,956, and hopefully all of that's in her HSA because she's paid herself those premium savings like we talked about earlier, and she's well on her way to getting her HSA fully fleshed out so that if she has a really bad plan year, she knows where the money's coming from to pay for her healthcare expenses. All right, so here is a contrasting example of someone that's on the same plan tier, just insures themselves, but is more of a user of healthcare expenses through the year, so that you can kind of see how it plays out from someone actually using it versus someone who, like Soraya, didn't use it in the year. So Mike is a social worker with no dependence on the health plan, and he's used a moderate amount of medical services and prescription drugs during the year. So this example is going to kind of contrast what you'd pay out of pocket, both in terms of premiums and healthcare expenses. The out-of-pocket medical costs on the Select plan for Mike were $1,855 during the year, and that's some combination of copays for doctor's visits and drugs, and also probably a test or two or a facility visit. And then on the Choice plan, if Mike had been on the Choice plan and had exactly the same usage, he would have paid $39.11 out of pocket for his costs. So factoring in the HSA contribution that he received if he went on the Choice plan, the next column looks at what the total out-of-pocket costs were, factoring in premiums, out-of-pocket costs, and potential HSA contributions on the Choice plan. Mike would have been better off by about $100 by being on the Select plan. So this is a good example to show you how there's really no right or wrong about which plan you pick. One plan one year may be better for you than another year, and just knowing what to expect is really the thing that gives you comfort that you've made the right choice for yourself, because there's no thing covered on one plan that isn't covered on another. It's really about the structure of your out-of-pocket costs and the premiums that you pay monthly. In this example, we're going to look at how one person on the plan hits the out-of-pocket max for the year and how the plans compare in that scenario. So Michelle is an office associate who covers her spouse on the plan. He's had a bad year with one hospitalization, multiple provider visits, he's on prescription drugs, and he's reached the individual out-of-pocket maximum for either of the plans. So in this case, we see the difference in the premiums. For the year, Michelle would have paid $31.20 in premiums over the course of 12 months. If she were on the Select plan, she'd pay $1,600. On the Choice plan, her out-of-pocket medical costs on the Select plan would have been $31.25. On the Choice plan, $10,120. But again, we have an out-of-pocket max on both plans. So in this case, the out-of-pocket max on the Select plan is $3,500. So she didn't quite reach that. But if she were on the Choice plan, she definitely would have reached it of $4,000 for her husband. When we factor in the HSA contribution, we look at the difference between the out-of-pocket costs. And Michelle, even though her husband had a bad medical year, she actually would have been up by $2,100 purely because of the difference between the monthly premiums, which are quite different, the difference of the out-of-pocket maxes, which aren't that different. You see, it's $3,500 versus $4,000 between the plans. So here's a bad scenario that still on the Choice plan she would have been fine with. In our final example, we're looking at the worst case scenario, which is a family out-of-pocket max situation where a family is hitting the actual family out-of-pocket maximum. Steve is a police officer that has family coverage. His wife and children were in a serious car accident. Both are fine now, but their medical expenses did hit the family out-of-pocket maximum for the year. So we, again, compare our premiums, the difference between the premiums throughout the year, over the course of the year. We compare the differences between the annual out-of-pocket maximum, which is $1,000 different between the two plans. We look at the HSA contribution that he would receive if he were on the Choice plan, and he's actually up $1,900, even though they hit the family out-of-pocket maximum for the year. All right, now that we've looked at the health plans, let's talk about FSAs, or flexible spending accounts. If you're not familiar with them, flexible spending accounts are accounts into which you contribute on a pre-tax basis, and then you use those funds to pay for eligible medical or dependent care expenses. Now we offer two different FSAs here. They're very different. One is medical. Those are for medical and related expenses. And then the other is for dependent care. Now dependent care is for your children who under the age of 13 who may have dependent care like daycare or after school expenses. So it's really important that if you don't have children that you're not enrolling in a dependent care FSA, you would pick a medical FSA. So don't confuse them. That happens every year. A few times. If you're picking an FSA to use for maybe your spouse's medical expenses, then you'd use medical, not dependent care. So again, this is deducted from your pay on a pre-tax basis, so it reduces your taxable income, and it also gives you more buying power with those dollars since those funds are never taxed. It's really important to know the rules about FSAs. There is definitely a use it or lose it situation that applies here. If you over contribute into your FSA and don't spend the money in your FSA, any balances over $500 at the end of the year go away. They're forfeited to the IRS. So you want to plan very carefully how much you're going to put into an FSA. It does come with a $500 rollover that'll go from one year to the other, but anything above it, you will lose it if you can't, if you haven't spent it and submitted a reimbursement request. So you must enroll annually during the open enrollment period if you want to contribute in the new plan year. Can't say that enough. These contracts do not roll from year to year. Even if you've been on the same medical plan and that rolls year to year to year, that's one thing. But FSAs, you have to enroll in a contract annually or you don't get to have one next year. Even if you have funds in your FSA that roll over from this year to next, you'll still have access to those. But if you fail to sign up for a new contract, you can't put more into your FSA. If you've never used an FSA before, it might be interesting to you to know that it's actually funded at the beginning of the plan year, even though you haven't put any money in yourself. So for example, let's say you decide that you're going to give this a try and you decide to contribute $1,000 over the course of the next year into your FSA. When January 1 rolls around, you actually have $1,000 to use in your FSA right away. This is very different than the HSA, which is an account that you use with the high deductible health plan. With the HSA, you can't spend what isn't there. So if you don't have money in it, you can't use it. But with the FSA, because you've entered into a contract to agree to put in $1,000 over the course of the year, you have access to that $1,000 a year as soon as the plan year starts. I find it very useful to have for dental and vision expenses, particularly the unexpected ones. But if you're on the traditional medical plan, you could use it for other things as well. So the annual maximum contribution, as far as we know, for the FSAs for 2020, that may change after this recording. So make sure you look at the open enrollment website to be sure what the maximums are, is $2,700 for medical. Again, it comes with a $500 rollover. It comes with a debit card, so you can use your debit card just like you would your regular bank account card to pay for eligible expenses. Or if you prefer, you can pay for your expenses out of pocket and then submit for reimbursement at some point during the year or after the year closes. Another thing that you should know, that if you are on the choice plan, the high deductible plan, you cannot have a traditional medical FSA, but you can have what's called a limited purpose FSA. And the reason they call it limited purpose is that you are limited to using it for only dental and vision expenses. So you can use your HSA money for all of these things, but I like to have both. I am on the high deductible plan, and I prefer to have an FSA to use for unexpected dental and vision expenses. One, because it's pre-funded, so I know the money is there right away at the beginning of the plan year. And two, I like to save my HSA money and not use it for things that I can use my FSA for. If you don't have the medical coverage here, or if you're on the traditional select plan, then you can have a traditional medical FSA, but you can use the FSA dollars for lots and lots of different expenses, medical, dental, vision, etc. All right, a few things to remember. If you select the choice plan, which is our high deductible health plan, you can only do a limited purpose medical FSA, which is limited to dental and vision only, versus the regular medical FSA that's available to everyone else. Be sure you understand your options. You want to understand the rules about FSAs, the use it or lose it piece particularly. Understand that you have a $500 rollover. And you don't want to forfeit any money to the IRS, so be sure that you are setting your contributions at a level that you can actually get the money out of and not lose to the IRS. And be a smart consumer, regardless of which medical plan you choose here. You will likely have some out-of-pocket costs on the medical plan, so be smart about how you spend your money. We have reached the end of our presentation. Remember that open enrollment runs from November 1st through November 15th at midnight. So if you need to do anything like change your health plan or your dental plan option, or add a dependent or drop a dependent, or elect a new FSA contract for the 2020 plan year, your time to do that is between the dates of 11/1 and 11/15. So don't wait until the last minute to do this. Make sure you get your open enrollment visit done well in advance, so that if you have any questions, you can ask us before the window closes. If the window does close, that's it. We're done for the year. And so it's really important to note the closing date for open enrollment. Again, if you want to have an FSA contract for next year, you must elect us during the open enrollment window. Throughout the year, make sure you read your Benefits Focus newsletters as they come to you. We send these out to everybody via email, and we don't send these out unless there's really important information in there for you. So always when you see these, take a few minutes just to review it and see if there's something that you need to know about in that newsletter. You can also learn about open enrollment information, find the links to the online open enrollment system, and various bits of information about medical, dental, and FSA by going to our special open enrollment website, which is www.albemarle.org/open-enrollment-info. And of course, during open enrollment or any point during the year, please don't hesitate to contact us if you have questions. You can reach us at 296-5827, or you can email us at benefits@albemarle.org. I hope you have a happy and productive open enrollment period, and thanks for listening.